Officials vowed to conduct a thorough investigation into last night's pop concert video panel collapse. Authorities relax eligibility rules for antiviral oral drugs for COVID patients. And the Chinese leader is warning against playing with fire over Taiwan in a call with his U.S. counterpart. Hello and welcome to TVB News. One of the dancers injured in last night's video screen collapse during a pop concert at Hong Kong Coliseum remains under intensive care this evening. The other dancer has been discharged after receiving treatment at hospital. The authorities have vowed to find out what went wrong. Christy Khan has more details and a warning that some of the images may be disturbing.
A giant video panel suspended above the stage fell onto performers in the middle of a concert by the boy band Mira. The screen struck and injured two dancers. They were rushed to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. One of them has been admitted to the intensive care unit. The condition of the other injured dancer was said to be stable. He was discharged from hospital this afternoon. The concert organizers have announced the cancellation of the remaining shows. Macau's chief executive Lo Ting-fei visited the dancers in the early hours of today and apologized to the public. He said the company will offer help to the dancers and their families. Concerns about the safety aspect of the concert were raised even before the first show, with rumors saying some dancers were injured during rehearsals. This morning, senior government official went to the Hong Kong Coliseum to conduct a preliminary inspection. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yuan said last night's incident was caused by the snapping of a steel cable. But a thorough investigation is needed to determine which parties should be held responsible for the incident.
I think this is an accident that all of us do not want to see. And so it is our responsibility and our determination to make sure that the same incidents will not happen again.
Meeting the press today, Chief Executive John Lee said the authorities will conduct a timely and comprehensive investigation into the incident. He added that the Health Bureau has already contacted the hospitalized dancers' parents who are now in Canada. A hospital visit will be arranged for them as soon as they return to the city without undergoing quarantine.
I think this is not an exception. This is a special arrangement for any overseas passengers who have a real need to go to the hospital, or sometimes some people may need to attend a funeral or something.
But the authorities said the family members are still required to complete the COVID tests and relevant procedures at the airports. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The city reported 4,696 new local COVID infections today and 188 imported cases. And to speed up recovery among COVID patients, authorities have relaxed eligibility rules for antiviral oral drugs. More details from Jackie Lin.
Yet another outbreak reported at a public hospital. This time, a ward at Queen Mary Hospital saw 3 male patients and 4 workers infected. Among the 3 schools forced to suspend classes because of multiple infections are Queen's College, Pentecostal School, and SKH St. Peter's Church Kindergarten, Castle Peak. Starting today, authorities will relax eligibility criteria for receiving antiviral oral drugs to treat COVID. Patients under the age of 60, vaccinated or not, could be prescribed the medication if they have chronic illnesses or are deemed high risk. That's given they visit a clinic within 5 days after the onset of symptoms and have no clinically unsuitable factors to receive the drugs. Some 40,000 doses of the oral drugs are in stock.
We know that the earlier the better to have this antiviral, because it helps to lower the viral load, and also it will help to shorten the time from getting the test results to negative, and the patients can recover better.
Apart from seeking medical attention at designated clinics or private hospitals, COVID patients could book via phone or the hospital authorities' mobile app for the prescription. The medicine could then be sent directly to the patient's home. Meanwhile, 5 more COVID patients died. Under the 5th wave of pandemic, 9,285 COVID patients have passed away. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Macau reported 2 new COVID infections today. Since June 18th, the city has recorded a total of 1,821 cases. The enclave is set to relax some of its social distancing measures starting tomorrow. Shops inside shopping malls and interior decoration projects will be able to resume limited operations. Members of the public are no longer required to wear a KN95 mask when they go out and can instead wear a surgical mask. However, movie theaters, beauty salons, and fitness centers will remain closed, while food and beverage establishments are still prohibited from providing dine-in services. President Xi Jinping held his 5th call with U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday night. The two leaders stressed the need for cooperation in various areas, with Xi issuing a stark warning to Washington over Taiwan and U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's potential trip to the island. Daniel Rao tells us more.
With the backdrop of a potential visit by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan looming over the call, President Xi Jinping warned his American counterpart Joe Biden about how Washington's ties to the island could affect its relations with Beijing. With regard to the U.S. and Taiwan, President Xi said those who play with fire will perish by it, and it is hoped that the U.S. will be clear-eyed about this. He added Washington should abide by the One China principle and stressed that China firmly opposes Taiwanese independence and outside interference. Aside from Taiwan, President Xi stressed the world's 2 largest economies needed to maintain communication on macroeconomic policies, global supply chains, as well as to safeguard global food and energy security. He said the 2 sides need to work for de-escalation of regional hotspots to help rid the world of COVID-19 as soon as possible and uphold the international system centering on the United Nations and the international order underpinned by international law. U.S. President Biden told President Xi the White House's policy on Taiwan had not changed. Washington follows the One China policy that recognizes Beijing, not Taipei, diplomatically. However, it is obliged by U.S. law to provide Taiwan with the means to defend itself. Biden stated Washington strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo or undermine peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. president also reiterated the importance of maintaining lines of communication with Beijing on Taiwan. On the economic front, the White House said Biden did not discuss potential steps to lift some American tariffs on Chinese goods during the talks. President Xi, however, said attempts by Washington at decoupling or severing supply chains in defiance of underlying laws would not help boost the U.S. economy, adding that they would only make the world economy more vulnerable. A senior U.S. official said Biden and Xi had discussed the possibility of holding a first face-to-face meeting as leaders and directed their teams to look into when this could be feasible. A public policy professor at the National University of Singapore said the talks may have gone some way to de-escalating tensions between China and the U.S. over House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's potential trip to Taiwan.
At least they talk to each other, at least they know the situation. But in the meantime, because of Pelosi, it's a lawmaker, not under Biden. So Beijing side always think Biden will actually command everything. But in reality, Biden could not command everything in the U.S. system. So that's the reason why they need to discuss and also explain the situation.
The Foreign Ministry commented on the talks today. Spokesperson Zhao Lijian doubled down on Beijing's stance towards Taiwan following on from President Xi. He said China's position against the U.S.-Taiwan exchanges is consistent and clear, and that the One China principle is the political foundation for China-U.S. relations. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is reportedly leading an official congressional delegation to Asia today, but it is unclear if the trip will still include a stop in Taiwan. Bloomberg News first reported that Pelosi's delegation is departing today, the last day the House is in session before its month-long recess in August. Her trip will include visits to Asian allies, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and Singapore. According to NBC News, Pelosi has invited senior lawmakers to join her on the trip. They include House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Gregory Meeks and Veterans Affairs Committee Chairman Mark Takano. Takano had led a delegation of lawmakers to Taiwan last year. Beijing has said it will carry out a forceful response if Pelosi sets foot on Taiwan. U.S. top officials have sought to soothe Americans' worries about the strength of their country's economy. This after new data showed the economy had contracted for 2 quarters in a row. President Joe Biden touted several positive facts, such as employers are still hiring, unemployment is at 50-year lows, and manufacturers are still investing.
There's going to be a lot of chatter today on Wall Street and among pundits about whether we are in a recession. But if you look at our job market, consumer spending, business investment, we see signs of economic progress in the second quarter as well. And yesterday's Fed chairman, the Fed chairman Powell made it clear that he doesn't think the U.S. economy is currently in a recession. He said, quote, "There are too many areas of economic where the economy is performing too well." I said too well, T-O-O, too well.
Most economists and most Americans have a similar definition of recession: substantial job losses and mass layoffs, businesses shutting down, private sector activities slowing considerably, family budgets under immense strain, in sum, a broad-based weakening of our economy. That is not what we're seeing right now when you look at the economy. Job creation is continuing. Household finances remain strong. Consumers are spending and businesses are growing.
The U.S. House passed on Thursday a $280 billion package to boost the semiconductor industry and scientific research. Its aim is to create more high-tech jobs in the United States and help it better compete with international rivals, in particular China. The House approved the bill by a solid margin of 243 to 187 before sending the measure to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. The bill provides more than $52 billion in grants and other incentives for the semiconductor industry. That's in addition to 25% tax credit for those companies that invest in chip plants in the U.S. However, it did come under fire from many Republicans who argued the plan would provide enormous assistance to a specific industry that does not need additional government handouts. Washington is hoping the bill will address what they call the threat posed by China to U.S. supply chains. Still ahead, Russia fires missiles into the Kiev region for the first time in weeks. The Indian Navy receives the delivery of the indigenous aircraft carrier Vikrant. And the 23rd animation comic game Hong Kong Fair opens. Welcome back to TVB News. Russia has fired dozens of missiles into areas near the Ukrainian capital of Kiev for the first time in weeks. Ukraine forces, meanwhile, are preparing for a major battle against occupying Russians in the Kherson region. Nazvi Karim reports.
A thick cloud of smoke covers half the horizon on the outskirts of the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The first time this has been seen in weeks, as Russia intensifies missile attacks on the Kiev and Cherniv regions, injuring 15 people. The strike comes a day after pro-Kremlin separatist Denis Pushilin called on Russian forces to liberate Russian cities founded by Russian people, including Kiev, the second largest city Kharkiv, and others. In Kharkiv in the northeast, Ukrainian soldiers use self-propelled artillery to push Russian forces further away from the city. This paramedic volunteer asked servicemen to sign a Ukrainian flag for children of a Californian school who have been sending letters to them. Hanna Demidenko said, "There are Ukrainians in California who really help us. They help Ukrainian defenders." In the eastern industrial heartland of Donbas, Russian forces are gradually gaining ground. Russia's defense ministry said its aerospace forces had killed up to 70 Ukraine personnel and destroyed more than 5 armored vehicles near the city of Bakhmut. Ivan Fedorov, mayor of the occupied Melitopol, said Russian military convoys were seen moving through the city towards Crimea and Kherson in preparation for that combat. British intelligence said the Russians are sending more mercenaries to the front lines, showing that they are running short of combat infantry. Meanwhile, Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda visited Kiev and pledged to send more support to the Ukrainian armed forces. In a press conference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Nausėda said increased support was crucial as Russia ramps up its rocket activity. At the UN, Aid Chief Martin Griffiths said he hoped Black Sea grain exports could start as early as today, after last week's deal between Russia and Ukraine.
This is an agreement which continues despite the war, and in which the two parties sitting in that centre in Istanbul, enemies still, need to work together to bring to fruition the things that they have agreed to.
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
French President Emmanuel Macron has hosted Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Paris. The dinner at the Élysée Palace is seen as part of Western efforts to court the oil-producing state amid the war in Ukraine. French opposition figures and human rights groups have criticized Macron's decision to host a man they believe ordered the murder in 2018 of prominent Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Macron has dismissed the criticism, saying the kingdom is too important to be ignored. Salman's visit comes 2 weeks after he held talks in Saudi Arabia with U.S. President Joe Biden. The West is keen to reset relations with the oil giant as it seeks to counter the rising influence of Iran, Russia, and China. Rights groups say they have filed a complaint asking French authorities to investigate the prince over the Khashoggi affair. The Indian Navy received the delivery of the indigenous aircraft carrier Vikrant from the Cochin shipyard in the southern city of Kochi. The vessel was designed by the Indian Navy's in-house Directorate of Naval Design. It was built by government-owned shipyard under the Ministry of Shipping and will soon be commissioned into the Indian Navy as Indian Naval Ship Vikrant. The 262-meter-long carrier has a full displacement of close to 45,000 tons. The ship is powered by 4 gas turbines and has a maximum speed of 28 knots. It cost around $2.51 billion to build. The Indian Navy said with the delivery, the country has joined a group of nations having the capability to indigenously design and build an aircraft carrier. An insurance agent was sentenced to 9 months in jail for tax evasion. The 60-year-old Isabella Cao was convicted of 11 counts of willfully evading tax with intent in West Kowloon Magistracy. The court earlier heard that Cao falsely claimed deductions of office assistant expenses in her business profit and losses accounts for the years 2009-10 to 2011-12. She also falsely declared in her tax returns for 2008-9 and 2013-14 to 2016-17 that her father resided with her continuously for 5 full years and claimed additional dependent parent allowance. The total of Cao's false claims of expenses and allowances for the 8 years of assessment was $770,000, and the total tax evaded was $86,849. Meantime, the Fire Services Department is set to upgrade its system to handle the triage of people injured in large-scale incidents. Instead of handling the triage of injured people manually, the electronic system will be adopted in September. The injured will still be given a colored tag to wear at the incident location to identify their level of injuries, but the tags will include a QR code. This allows rescue workers to scan the code with a cell phone and input the situation and other information into the system, such as which hospital a patient has been allocated to. Through the system, the information will be available to other rescue services, as well as hospitals and other parties involved. The 23rd Animation Comic Game Hong Kong Fair officially started today. Storekeepers are optimistic about their businesses this year as the fair has raised its admission capacity to 85%. Timothy Lee reports.
Repulsor at the ready. Sabers raised and prepared for the high ground. Hong Kong fans of popular comics, anime, and films have the opportunity to don their favorite characters' costumes and gather at the exhibition center for the ultimate shopping spree. The Animation Comic Game Hong Kong, or ACGHK, earlier announced that each day from July 29th to 31st, 300 lucky individuals will not have to take part in the fair's long lines after winning queue-free spots in an online lottery. While many who came are already Anycom and Games veterans, this year's exhibition also attracted some fresh faces.
This is actually my first fair in my lifetime, and I say I'm enjoying it a lot. I'd love to take a lot of photos today, love to make up dramatic scenarios.
Others noted the improvements this time around compared to last year.
It's a lot better than last year.
Last year was a lot.
Yeah, we only had to wait 40 minutes, and well, last year we had to wait like multiple hours. Yeah.
Oh, I also feel like it's safer this year because people are vaccinated.
More than 500 exhibitors are participating in this year's ACGHK, and visitors can purchase the fair's standard tickets for $40. As the admission capacity has risen from last year's 50% to 85%, some vendors believe they may see a 40% growth in sales.
Behind me are several exhibitions of the most popular anime, comics, and video game franchises, with the fair also hosting a cosplay competition where visitors can vote for their favorite candidates, with the winner receiving a reward of $2,000. Yay! Timothy Lee, TVB News.
That is the news. Have a great weekend. Bye.